I'd like to welcome Kathy Peters, who will share her involvement with the development and carrying out of plans for the Women's Center in Marquette, Michigan. The Women's Center got underway in the mid-'70s and is still active to this day in 2014. Kathy, welcome.
Hi. Well, I came here to Marquette first as a young bride. My husband, Doug Realmetti, had just finished law school in '63, and we came up here so he could practice law because he grew up in Marquette. So everything went really well for quite a few years, and we lived in Ishpeming for a while, and then we moved back to Marquette, and then unfortunately he died. And at that point, I was a young mother with 3 young children. My oldest child was in grade Arrête, and my youngest one was probably in kindergarten. And at some point, somebody said, well, maybe you should go back and get your teaching certificate. I had a master's degree, and I hadn't taken any education classes, and they thought that would be wise. So I ended up at the Women's Center at Northern, and they found some scholarship money, and so I took a couple classes from Jean Rutherford, I remember, and then there was a really boring one that I thought was useless. And those kinds of things happened with that program. As a consequence of being a young widow, I also was taking spending some time with a group psychologist, and she was the one that ended up getting me involved in the displaced homemaker program initially, Frances Vandermarl.
Can you describe what that meant, displaced homemaker?
Well, displaced homemakers are people who would normally be sitting at home, in the old days doing their wifely things, and something had happened so that instead of being just the wife and mother, they suddenly were thrust out into the working world. And for many of those ladies, that was a real hard blow, whether it's from divorce or widowhood. And so I thought it was a really neat program, and somehow I transferred from that idea into teaching some assertive training classes. I must have been taking that when I was in that program. I don't remember that.
So you were a beneficiary and
then they turned me into a teacher.
Volunteer. Wow.
And I know I did that with Laurel Nuckman for a number of years, and I don't remember year-wise. I remember trips we took together down to Escanaba one time, and in a snowstorm. We were crazy to do that. We were keeping track of the side of the road on the way back, one of those kinds of trips.
And this was related to your... So you went beyond the Marquette area.
Yeah, to assertive training class. I know we were teaching some at the Methodist Church, I think. We had some classes there, and those are more adult, those were adult classes. They weren't for kids. And then at some point I was working with Sherry Myers, and I think she was on the board at the Women's Center, somehow involved, and she asked if I'd be doing some things with young people. And so through the probate court, through the diversion program of the probate court, and I think Frances was also working on that program then, so she conned me into doing that.
Was that connected directly to the Women's Center, or was that a separate program?
I think it was separate. Right. I think it was separate. I'm not quite sure, but I don't know if the materials might have been similar. I've got a stack of materials, and I don't quite know which ones went where.
But maybe, again, an example of this linking up of different communities.
Thinking, well, this would be good for kids. And we had probably 8 or 10 kids that we came for several weeks. I don't remember. I know Dwight Johnson's name showed up in some of my information. There are a couple other people that were involved in that, and I don't remember their names now. But that was pretty interesting because probably at the same time I was subbing at the high school for somebody who was on maternity leave, and so because I then had my teaching certificate, I was subbing. And there was a student in one of my classes who was also in this diversion program, and I remember at the end of one class she said, I was Mrs. Peters by that time. I'd married Lou Peters. And she said, but Mrs. Peters, you said you don't have to answer everybody who asks you a question. Well, she was getting into trouble on the schoolyard or on the playground or whatever you want to call it, because she was responding to everybody who was heckling, teasing, annoying, whatever words you want to use. And I was just answering a classroom question. So I had to sort of explain to her there was a little difference there. And if you don't respond to everybody, they're going to, what does that do to them? They're not getting a rise out of you. You can diminish their effectiveness by not responding. So I thought that was pretty neat, that she had really picked up on that, and it really applied to what her problem was.
And had some assertiveness to talk to you about it.
Asked me, because I was the one that was doing the teaching in this other class. So that was pretty neat. There was another student that was in one of those classes that she was an ornery one. And I remember going to a restaurant in town, and she was the waitress. She was waiting on us. And I was just dumbfounded because she was so nice and so sweet. And I thought, who is the person that's teaching her these things? Well, it was the guy who owned Bonanza. He apparently had pretty high standards for his staff. And he must have been telling them how to do this. And by golly, she was doing it. And so I thought, I think she was in that class. I don't have any reason to know why I would have known her otherwise. But I thought that was pretty neat, too, so that there were other people in the community, maybe these people hiring young students to work in their businesses, that also were having a pretty good impact on some of these kids.
Again, the community support and consistency. That's been a theme throughout, Kathy, is how the different organizations supported one another and interlocked. That's great.
So, I don't know, you have other...
Well, I would ask you, have you kept track or been aware of Women's Center activities since then? I know you've gone on to some other
Not particularly.
Okay.
Not particularly. I've gotten involved in a lot of things.
Tell us about what you've got.
Moving out to the township, there are always township issues, and we show up at the township meetings and express our opinion about certain things. And I've gotten involved in quilting. That's a pretty neat group of people that I do things with and have some really good conversations with, and spent the morning with them laughing and trying to figure things out and being challenging to each other, and that's fun to do.
And you've also contributed to the development of the Heritage Trail.
Oh yeah, that's one of my big things, is doing the research for a lot of the signage for that trail. And again, it's getting together with some people and having different opinions, and I think the things you learn where you're not afraid to speak up and not afraid to say, I disagree with you on that, and not feel you're being angry with them or putting them down. They have a right to an opinion too, but maybe you'd like to have your opinion heard.
And in that process, we've talked with other women who said it's a modeling process, too. If other young women see you doing that with some courage, and appropriately, that's the assertive versus the aggressive, it's an important role. And this community is so full of women doing that, again, the young people...
What strikes me is really interesting, because as a graduate student, I was teaching labs at University of Michigan. I was a lab teacher in the zoology department. And I don't remember before that ever having the courage to do something like that. And somehow I got given that job, and I stepped up to the plate and did it. I probably did a pretty good job because I knew my material.
Oh,
and I wasn't afraid. And I remember at that point one distinctly, the parent of one of those students coming in and wanted to talk to me because I was the teacher and his son wasn't getting a good grade. Whoa. I was probably 3 years older than his son. What this young twig is doing, telling him. But I went through this stuff, and I didn't have a disagreement with him, but I told him what was going on. He hadn't earned it.
Now you're saying in a way then you were blossoming as a college student, but would you say the activities that you did for yourself at the Women's Center had some role to play?
Absolutely.
They helped you through that period?
Absolutely. Helped me through that period being a displaced homemaker, for sure. And, I don't know what else I was doing during that time. Oh, I was helping over at Parkview School. I got involved and I was the plant lady at Parkview School.
Well, you were raising 3 children, too.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And taking them various places and doing activities with them, so.
Well, this is good. If there's anything you'd like to add, just from the perspective of the woman's role and changing women's role over time, have you noted that? Say you have a daughter, a homemaker now.
I would say my daughter and daughter-in-laws are pretty assertive people.
And it's hard to trace whether that comes from the
Yeah.
DNA or environment, but
Yeah.
we're seeing more of that with young
And
women
maybe
in the
they
work.
were. I know particularly with my daughter. I think she was doing stuff with horses, and Julie Higley was certainly an assertive woman, appropriately assertive, and I think Anne learned things from being around her.
So the modeling makes
So the
a
modeling of
difference.
some other adult in her community, and there were people like Carolyn McDonald. She was one of her daughter was one of my aunt's best friends. They did fun things together.
They were learning the same things then
Yeah,
from their mothers. And
Yeah.
okay, well, thank you very much for your contribution to the Women's Center and for doing the interview. We learned from these. Thank you.
So you're welcome.